So State of Decay 3's original trailer launched all the way back in July 2020, and technically speaking, outside of just pestering the developers like I have on their personal live streams the last couple of years, we haven't really gotten any big updates on the game until now. Not only do we have a window when we're finally going to see something about State of Decay 3, but the developers themselves talked open recently on the real struggles the game's been facing, including their frustrations with not getting information out to us. We have a lot to uncover in this video, but first, let's pay some bills. A virus has escaped and zombies are about to bite and kill us all. And you guys know that boring same old story, kind of like default browsers, which is why I've teamed up with Opera GX, the world's first browser exclusively for gamers, and being able to customize with GX mods is a game changer, like this zombie apocalypse wallpaper, or change themes to the many others that are available. Set up background music and easily control with just a click, and you get an immersive experience with awesome browser sounds. Take a listen to this. Or how about your PC being under threat from drained resources by hungry zombie browsers? Well, with Opera GX, you can use the CPU limiter and RAM limiter to give you the performance boost to survive the zombie apocalypse that much better. And finally, because time is limited and we could be mowed down at any second from a vicious zombie, let's use Opera GX's amazing import tool to take all our settings from the previous browser over to GX. Very seamless, quick, and easy. If you guys want this level of survival, click that link below and download Opera GX completely free. All right, so in a recent interview with Xbox Game Studio head Matt Booty, now this is the guy that's in charge of the first party games at Xbox, which Undead Labs does fall under that umbrella. He talks about State of Decay 3, and he goes on to say that he's cautiously confident that the likes of State of Decay 3 will be ready to show deep gameplay dives within the next 18 months. So that's a 1.5 year window. Not only that, but he almost gives a hint when we could see the release window. He says, as I think ahead, even as we get into 2025, we've seen builds of the games at the initiative. And I know just because Undead Labs are there in Seattle, what's going on with State of Decay 3? We've seen these things. So as I look ahead to the next 18 months in terms of what we're going to be able to show and deliver and do that kind of gameplay reveal, I'm cautiously confident because the team are hard at work and they get that that's kind of the bar now, which is let's show it. Let's show up with gameplay and do a deeper dive when we show up. Now, the key in that statement is him saying look ahead into 2025, and he lumps State of Decay 3 in that sentence. Now, you can kind of take that two ways. You can take it as him saying we might not see gameplay until 2025, but I took it more like he's looking into 2025 in terms of game releases, and that we could see gameplay deep dives before they release. So that's kind of a long time, and as someone who pays attention to what's going on with Xbox these days, that kind of leads me to believe we have 2 events and 3 windows of when we'll see our next trailer and big game reveal. The first one would be, I think, coming up at the Game Awards at the end of the year this year, which I don't think we'll see State of Decay 3 there, but there's a chance, especially since Xbox was a no-show last year and they got a lot of flack for that. But it's possible, but I kind of doubt it. My guess is actually that we're going to see an announcement and maybe even a tentative release date a year from now at the next Xbox showcase, in which they'll reveal a crap ton about the game, and then finally maybe if we don't see it then, maybe at the Game Awards in 2024. So kind of keep those dates in mind and bookmarked. Now, one thing I want you guys to keep in mind is that Xbox is wanting to have big game releases every year that are system sellers, so it makes sense that State of Decay 3 would be a 2025 game release, and Fable is probably going to be their big 2024 release. Of course, this is me guessing, but I feel like they're pretty educated guesses. Matt Booty himself gave us a pretty definitive window when we're going to hear about State of Decay 3, and that's at least within 18 months, which I have to say is a little bit depressing, especially since the announcement came in July 2020 with that initial trailer. And that's nuts, guys, when you really think about it. It would mark half a decade before we see the release of this game, and keep in mind they were working on it before that trailer technically launched. The trailer didn't appear, and at that very moment they started developing State of Decay 3. But everything that I just told you guys is actually shared frustrations by the developers themselves, that they haven't been able to get us information on the game, as we actually have some direct quotes from 2 different devs within the past 2 weeks about the challenges that this game has presented. Now, on Reddit, when someone made a post that we've had no new information on State of Decay 3 post that Xbox Xbox showcase, art director Brant Fitzgerald had quite a lot to say. Now, he goes on to say, "I'm as frustrated as anyone, maybe for different reasons, but I hate seeing our community upset. Don't be angry with us. We're just trying to make the best game possible." Then in the same thread, someone asked for any kind of update of any sort of details. Brant went on to say, and I'm paraphrasing here, he says, "I've asked repeatedly that we be allowed to be transparent like we used to, but since Xbox acquired Undead Labs, the message is now more controlled, and since they write the checks, they decide if I get fired, so I keep my mouth shut." So he got a little spicy there, and he's right, guys. There's a lot of red tape that Undead Labs has to deal with, which is why we pretty much have not heard any sort of news. And finally, he goes on to say that we share a large portion of the blame, and I'm just saying I would have never done a trailer that early. So as you guys can see here, we have a developer that's pretty frustrated with the situation in general, so don't be mad at the team, but really be mad at the bigwigs over at Xbox if you feel a bit frustrated at the situation. But that's not the only developer quote that we have about State of Decay 3 recently. Jeffrey Card, State of Decay 3 game designer, goes on to talk about the challenges that they've been facing, and this is a really good listen because it really helps provide context on why it's actually taken so long. You're going to want to take a listen to this.
So, Quitcher, I'm sorry that State of Decay 3 was not at the Xbox event. We are not ready to show anything, and people kept asking me about whether State of Decay 3 was going to be on that, and talking about press events in advance is just a thing that someone cannot do, and so I couldn't tell you yes or no about it. But yeah, sorry that was disappointing. But you know, we've this game has taken us a while to sort of get what we're doing up on its feet, and so yes, we're not ready to show anything, but at some point we will. And you all, people who follow our channels and sort of are connected to our community, you're going to be the first ones to know whenever anybody is allowed to know anything. Yeah, so Coalition is drawing comparisons between the gap, with the gap between State of Decay 1 and 2, and I mean, I would expect our gap to be a little bit bigger because we are taking an even bigger sort of step up in sort of the scale of project that it is, the number of people working on that kind of thing. Things go slow the bigger you go. State of Decay 1 was a very small, scrappy team. State of Decay 2 was a mid-sized team, and so like as we keep sort of escalating our ambitions, things take a while, and it's hard to sort of learn how to how to handle each new scale of thing that you do. Makes you think about, like, you have to think about your culture, your studio culture, in a totally different way, and you have to make decisions in different ways, and it can be, it's just a challenge. To each new project is not just like, oh, we'll just do the same thing you did last time, only slightly better. Like, people actually get disappointed if that's what you do. The people expect a certain amount of sort of like escalation from a game series, especially when you're spanning generations of hardware, and so it's a challenge. And I think we probably would be happier if we'd managed to do this faster too, but we haven't. Because I mean, the last thing we want is to spend forever, working on a game and not having you see it. My favorite thing has always been, the fast turnaround we always had in updates to State of Decay 2, where we could just turn something around really quickly. And, and I could, I got to have like feedback for the stuff that I was creating really fast. That was a very emotionally satisfying experience. I would love to get back to that scenario. So we're not just sitting there holding back for fun. We really, we're eager to get to the point where we can share this stuff with you.
Now, I really think it's easy to forget that this studio started as this like little upstart indie group, and the first game itself was pretty much an indie survival game that was charming, but it was really rough around the edges, if we're being honest. But now it's like a full-fledged big team working on what is technically their first AAA title. So it's really a big stark difference from that first game all the way to where they are now. So I really feel like Jeffrey kind of highlighted pretty well why this has taken so long. And go ahead and check his YouTube channel below. I have a link where you really get some cool insights about the State of Decay franchise on his channel. But ultimately, my thoughts, like a lot of you watching this, you might be pretty disappointed like I am. I mean, I have to say I am. I always had pegged 2024 as when we could see the launch of this game. And technically, that's like, it's kind of possible, but I don't think it's going to happen. But at the very minimum, we can say we have a window where we're going to see not only an announcement, but just full-on gameplay. And God, 18 months is a long time. And a big part of me does fear that, like, can this really go into maybe even 2026? Like, it can't go that long, can it? Surely we have to see this game launch in 2025, because at that point, we're already talking about new consoles if we go all the way that far. And it's really just insane when you really think about that scope. Either way, guys, I have some really juicy details on what I've uncovered about State of Decay 3 before in a video where there's huge multiplayer aspirations. So make sure you guys check out that video on the screen.